Hello, this is your evil twin, welcoming you back to Let's Play Quantum Break.
The future used to be so clear when I was reliving the past. Once I caught up to the moment I had left, that ended. All I've had to go on since then are the plan and the visions. I knew Jack would come to me. I'd seen that. But I didn't know why exactly, or how it would end.
There he is. You were right.
My visions of the future aren't always clear, but they don't lie.
Speaking of lies, Joyce is saying he's discovered his brother's time machine.
We've spent 17 years looking for it, and he finds it in less than a day?
Does sound unlikely.
Still, we know it's out there somewhere, and we don't know what his brother managed to tell him.
If he really has located the machine, why would he come here and tell you? Smart Money says he's trying to play you.
Maybe, but the machine is out there. It's in our interest to find out where. And if Jack knows, I have to talk to him.
Dr. Joyce could have provided the answer to that question.
William's attitude and knowledge made him a liability.
Is that angry young man going to cooperate any more than his brother did? You remember Jack as a close friend, but that clouds your judgment. Don't make this personal.
It's not.
But don't forget why we're here tonight. After what happened, our people need reassurance that we're in control. You're the man who could win them over. Let me handle Joyce, so you can concentrate on your speech.
I know what's at stake here, Martin.
Nice place Paul has here. Look at the view.
The mansion was an extravagance, but it was useful for events like the gala, and it deflected attention from our nearby R&D facility.
You can see Monarch HQ across the water.
Mr. Joyce is waiting for us down below.
Dr. Sophia Amaral had taken over our Chronon research department after Dr. Kim's accident. She was the only one who could treat the Chronon syndrome.
So it looks like Sophia logged into her email account from Paul's computer. Which makes sense, Paul and Sophia are quite close, and Sophia administers Paul's treatments here on the island. Anyway, Sophia got an email from someone named Erica Cross, who was recruited by Dr. Henry Kim, Monarch's former head of Chronon research. Erica and Henry were old friends. In fact, there's quite a bit of detail about their history. They went to the same school, and he was her husband's best man at their wedding. That marriage ended, and Erica moved to Florida and remarried. Married a woman, in fact. But despite all that, Erica and Henry stayed friends. Just a week before Erica was due to start her job at Monarch, she learnt that Henry had been killed in an accident. Since then, Erica's been cleared for some of the more sensitive Chronon research, and learnt that the story of Henry's death was a fabrication. And actually, he has become something else. He's been transformed somehow. Which is pretty interesting, as right from the start of the game, we've been hearing that Dr. Henry Kim was killed in an accident. Not only did that lead to Sophia becoming Monarch's head of research, it's also why Paul brought Will into the University Time Machine project. But now it turns out he's not even actually dead. Erica's not blaming anybody, but she's wondering if she now has a high enough security clearance to be told what actually happened to her older friend. She tried asking Martin Hatch, but he said that she should drop it. Sophia replied and told Erica everything she knows about Henry's accident. Which actually isn't that much, as for the past 6 months, Sophia's been trying to figure out what happened herself. Henry was working late in his lab, there was some kind of Chronon particle surge, and it transformed Henry into a Chronon disrupted wave function subject, also known as a shifter. And this condition is essentially the same condition that Paul is suffering from, except Paul's case hasn't progressed as far. How this happened is a mystery. A Chronon surge that powerful should have caused temporal changes in the lab, but there weren't any, and none of the chronon containers had high enough capacity for such a large dose, and they were all intact and accounted for. So there are no clues as to how Henry could have been exposed to this massive dose of chronon radiation. Martin Hatch was the only other person who was there, but he claims to have no memory of events, despite the fact that Martin was somehow able to contain Henry in the artificial zero-state field set up in the lab. Sophia says that she's unwilling to speculate as to how this could possibly have happened, but she's basically dropping hints that Martin Hatch was somehow responsible for what happened to Henry. And Sophia tells Erica that she'd be happy to arrange for Erica to switch to a similar senior position in a different department, no questions asked. I love the fact that they went into this kind of detail. We're never going to meet this character, Erica Cross, but they put in the effort to make her seem like a real person who had an actual history of Dr. Kim. By giving Erica a backstory, they also gave Dr. Kim a backstory, and made him a real person with a life and friends who miss him. And it turns out he's not actually dead. Given that we're reading this email as Paul, I wonder what Paul thinks of all this. Is Paul also suspicious of Martin Hatch? Or does he trust him and think it was just some bizarre accident? Or maybe Paul himself told Martin to do something to Dr. Kim. Maybe he's not suspicious of Martin because he was actually carrying out Paul's orders. Conspiracies, conspiracies.
We should go.
Back to the matter of Jack Joyce. Paul, Serene and Martin Hatch want to know where William Joyce's time machine is hidden. A few minutes ago, Martin made the point that William could have given him the answer to that question, if Paul hadn't killed him. In the novel, Quantum Break Zero State, Paul and Martin actually have an argument about it. Paul reckoned that Will's knowledge and attitude made him a liability, but Martin reckoned it would have been worth the risk, that it was rash for Paul to kill the world's greatest chronon scientist.
What are these doing here? We should be set up by now.
It's all on schedule. You're micromanaging again.
Now here's Paul wanting to keep Jack Joyce alive,
Don't even twitch.
even though Jack is notoriously reckless, has dangerous superpowers, and wants revenge for the death of his brother.
And here you are.
I had to see the lifestyles of the sick and traitorous up close and personal. And it was such a nice invitation.
How do you want to deal with this, Paul?
So here we have the time distortion effects of another junction point. A place where the future branches into two potential timelines. And it's up to Paul which will come to pass.
Paul, what should we do about Joyce?
If we take a look at Paul's fancy car,
Paul,
Just thinking about a road trip I took a long time ago. In a car far less comfortable than this.
let's focus on the issue at hand.
This asshole don't look like much. Tell that to all the guys he wasted.
Paul was talking about the road trip he took with Jack. The same trip where they stole the ram statuette from a police station. Jack is surrounded by SWAT troopers, heavy shotgunners, and chronon striker units. And of course Paul himself has his own deadly time powers.
I could still try to reach Jack and make him see reason. Or I could let Hatch deal with him so nothing would distract me from leading Monarch.
Now Paul will use his abilities to see glimpses of these potential futures.
Up into the past. I tried to change things.
Answer me this question, Paul.
I once trusted Jack more than anybody. It was my only chance to make him understand the truth.
The fuck do you mean nobody got a look at the shooter?
But without me there to give the speech, my empire would start to crumble like a house of cards.
So that's the personal option. How about business?
I believe
becomes miscalculation, and as you'll die one way, Mr. Joyce, with miscalculation can often come catastrophe. And that leaves me with you, Mr. Joyce.
But my old friend would be a lost cause, dead and buried along with the rest of my past.
Tonight is a celebration in the face of darkness. Tonight we celebrate because I promise to you that we are prepared.
Monarch would grow stronger with my presence. The plan would go forward as intended.
Once again, we have a decision to make. What should Paul choose? If we choose the business option and let Martin Hatch handle Jack, Paul thinks that will lead to Jack's death. Of course, Jack must escape somehow, because otherwise that would be the end of the game. Wouldn't be much of a choice if one of the paths led to an immediate game over. Funnily enough, early in Quantum Break's development, there was a version of the story where Jack could be killed, and then Beth would take over. That would be pretty amazing, but alas that didn't make it into the final game. So, if Paul chooses business, then Paul can make sure that his plan moves forward. But he'll also be confirming to Jack that he really is a ruthless bastard, happy to kill Jack just like he killed his brother. While if Paul chooses personal and takes the time to talk to Jack, he might diffuse the situation with Jack a bit, and he could get some useful info out of him. Jack is angry at Paul and wants revenge for the death of his brother, but there is a personal connection between them. Paul might be able to leverage some of that history to get through to Jack and convince him that Monarch is the best hope of saving the world. There's not much chance of Jack opening up to Martin Hatch. Also, a point that isn't made here, but is made in the Quantum Break novel, is that Jack is the only other person to have the same time powers as Paul. Everyone else who's ever been exposed to a chronon surge has developed chronon syndrome or become a shifter, like Dr. Henry Kim. So if Monarch can study Jack, then that might help in finding a cure for Paul, or even in finding a way to replicate those time powers in other people. But Martin reckons that these are all just excuses, that this is really about Paul's personal feelings. Jack is a distraction, he's far more dangerous than his brother, and even less likely to cooperate. Interestingly, in the novel, although Martin Hatch is annoyed that Paul killed William Joyce, and argues that he shouldn't have, Martin also accuses Paul of weakness for not simply shooting Will, that he blew up the library because he couldn't bring himself to pull the trigger. Paul says that the library demolition was part of the plan. It helped to distract attention for what Monarch was actually up to. But I think Martin's right about that one. Paul had a gun pointed at Will's head, and yet he ordered someone on the radio to detonate the explosives and drop the building on Will. And similarly, if Paul speaks to Jack and can't get through to him, then it's doubtful whether Paul will be able to bring himself to shoot Jack. Paul struggles with these moral decisions, but Martin Hatch is ruthless. Also, Paul's vision of the personal timeline included someone taking shots at Martin Hatch. We don't know the context for that. It might be anti-Monarch protesters, it could be a coup within Monarch, there are a bunch of conspiracies and hidden agendas, or it might be Beth causing a distraction so Jack can escape. So, what should Paul do? Should Paul deal with Jack personally, at the risk of causing chaos within Monarch? Or should Paul go with Martin Hatch's ruthless approach and focus on the mission? And should our choice be based on what seems more sensible for Paul? Or should we choose badly on purpose? Because whatever's bad for Paul is good for Jack. Now it's time for you to vote. If you're watching on a computer, then on most browsers a poll card should have just popped up on your screen. You can also hover your mouse over the video and a little eye symbol should appear in the top right, and you can click on that to bring up the poll. If you're using the YouTube app on a phone or tablet, then instead you might have to tap on the video or pause it to make the eye symbol appear in the top right. Tapping on that eye symbol should bring up the poll. Once you've voted, it'd be really great if you could leave a YouTube comment or a forum post about what you voted for and why. It was really interesting reading everyone's reasoning last time. By the way, if you're watching on a games console or smart TV, or the built-in browser that comes with certain tablets, or Facebook's web browser, then there might not be an eye symbol. Let me know if you have any trouble voting. In the next part, we'll be watching the second episode of the Quantum Break live-action show, where the events will depend on the outcome of this Junction decision. Thanks for watching, thanks for voting, and be sure to join me next time.